you know. So hear me out. First, you have to forget the notion that Japanese people are any different than any other groups of people. Um, that's basically culturally fueled propaganda that we've all been conditioned to accept. And the truth is, we all have the same basic needs and thoughts and feelings. I mean, come on, let's just get real. No matter who you are or where you are in the world, we all share the same basic foundation of human ways. So just get that whole idea of, oh well, they're Japanese, so that's how they do it or whatever. It's bullshit. Okay, each human has a certain level of love they have to receive, and they want to give, and they have to have a certain level of independence to feel fulfilled. I mean, this is just basic shit. But here, the work-life balance is like purposefully lopsided, and I think it's to assist in imposing the need for conformed thinking, like actions, and even like consumer spending. And it sounds crazy, but the work-life balance is so in favor of the company here. It's just mind-blowing. And the minds of the youth are so bombarded with like future societal and familial expectations that they unknowingly skip over their time to blossom into independent and free thinking and speaking adults. And it's a really like clear observation for me here that the adult population has like no social skills, plain and simple. Like there's nothing. So part of social skills is like actually communicating like what's going on in your society and like what you want to do to fix it. From of course they do probably talk about those things, but like the most serious things like work-life balance, they have no control over. So they just basically just don't talk about it. The current population of adults and children, they have no way or ability to like control their feelings in a healthy manner, from what I can tell. Excuse me. The way that the adults handle their stress here is by drinking and smoking cigarettes. I mean, it's so like it's just amazing, to be honest with you. Like I'm a teacher, and I part of like some of my tests, I'll ask people like, do you drink alcohol? Not a test to see like what the response is, but just to see like the format and how they respond. Just like typical questionnaire thing, like this English practice. But they never lie. They always like write like they want to be like perfect their writing. So if they wouldn't lie and say they drink every day, but I'm telling you, a huge percentage of people say they drink every day, and like they're not ashamed of it, and that's cool. That's cool that they're not ashamed of it, but that's their way of handling their stress. Instead of like being able to really talk with each other, like they drink alcohol, and perhaps that helps them talk a little bit, But for the most part, people are really silent here, and they don't interact much, and they don't have time to do that either. The kids, on the other hand, they tend to like isolate themselves from everybody, and that's dangerous. And both of these ways, they lead to like either suicide or this lifelong like misery. So just listen a little bit more, and I hope you understand what I'm trying to convey to you. I ride the trains every day. Literally, I'm on a train every day, going somewhere, doing something. And I'm just to the point after 2 years where I'm just like I can't hold it in anymore. I have to say something. Like the people here are so exhausted, I guess would be the best way to say it. They're great people. In the hearts and minds, they're great, but they don't have the, I guess, ability and time and means to effectively like communicate for positive change in this country. From a young age, Japanese people are under a constant pressure to go along with situations that they may or may not agree with, like at school and then college and work and in the family life. But in America, like I was always pressured by like my teachers and my parents and like even my supervisors at work to like openly and freely just speak my mind, but to do so in a way that didn't really, piss everybody off, but it kind of got my point across. And neither of these approaches of like just not saying anything or saying anything you want are necessarily the best way to like for me to describe how we should express our opinions. But this is just an example of the two, it's like a macro example of two opposite cultures, and I'm part of that opposite culture that came here, and I'm kind of observing. So, if my culture, brought me up to really give my opinion, that's what I'm doing. And I'm doing it on YouTube because I don't want to do it like out in the society, because, people don't have time to just talk about these things. They don't. Even if they did have time, they would be like nervous to talk about it. Like if someone else could hear them talking about it, like they would get nervous. If there's a group of people and you ask one of them, what's your favorite food? They'll look at the other person and be like, they'll like have a debate about like what their favorite food is. And I'm just like, come on, it's your favorite food, not the person next to you's favorite food. Come on. But they have to be in like this like agreeance all the time. And the agreeance isn't necessarily the truth. That's what's crazy about it. Nonetheless, like, the ability to speak thoughts clearly and confidently just doesn't exist on any like noticeable platform here in Japan. And this, in my opinion, has led to widespread mental depression, and it's gaining severity like every day. And to put it in perspective, in 2 years, more people died or will die in Japan from suicide. It's like 30,000 a year. And so in 2 years, more people will die from suicide than all the people who died in the atomic bombings. Think about that. I mean, it's been a long time since then. What, almost 80 years or so? It's been such a long time since then. Think about all the people who died from that. Just suicide, But there's still, to this day, more people talking about the atomic bombs than there are people talking about the suicide epidemic. And it's just to put it in perspective of how serious this is. And I see it, so I want to talk about it because it just needs to be talked about. And if you're Japanese and you're listening to this could be like reassuring for you that, I see it, I get it. And I'm actually sympathetic. And I don't mean to point fingers, but I kind of want like, I know I can't make a lot of change, but if I can just change one person and just kind of give them my thoughts and opinions, I think that's beneficial. And that's part of the reason a lot of Japanese people learn English, is because they want to like know about other cultures. This society has been isolated for a long time, and that culture of isolation and conformity and like strict ways of doing things and thinking hasn't really changed so much. I mean, it's still here, and it just takes time to balance out to like the real, like, I don't know, human ways. But this lack of speaking has led to a society that is like separated by thousands of miles in terms of their emotional thoughts and feelings. Of course, basic housing, transportation, like healthcare needs are met, but that all comes at like a valuable cost to their freedom and their happiness and their family time over the years. Over the 2 years I've spent in Japan, I've never saw a complete happy family unit like anywhere in public or at a house or anything. Like there's always like some fucking beef going on. There's always like, maybe they're not talking about it, but you can just tell like, okay, they're not so happy together. It's really kind of like obvious. But every day I see like salary men and women who are just tired, depressed, and like they're silently commuting their way to and from work, and it's usually way past like a typical 8-hour workday, and it's more like 10, 14 hours a day, including like a 2 or 3 hour round trip commute. And it's literally more depressing than seeing homeless people on the streets of like New York, which I've seen, and it's more depressing to me to see these people. They put so much effort into their work and they get so little out of life as a whole because they've dedicated so much time and effort to their work. And I know that everybody here in Japan can feel the box that they're trapped in because it's like impossible to ignore. But the culture encourages the suppression of any like negative, and in this case true, like statements, because the statements may like inadvertently cause uneasiness in someone else, and as a result they just choose to remain silent, and go along to get along. I think like idiom is clearly in action here. I mean, it's totally what it is. The fear of saying the wrong thing has led to a society that, in my opinion, will never be able to fight to like instate workers' rights, such as like paid overtime or back-to-back days off, and like a union-led strike for change. It is actually like a laughable matter because it just doesn't exist here at any level. Of course they have unions, but it's part of the company, go figure. So it's not really like a union, you're like an auto workers union, auto workers, and different companies employ the union. Here it's like they have a work union inside their company. And I actually have taught at some big companies, and they tell me that it's just a joke. So I'm not blowing smoke up your ass. But I think, the work to life balance in Japan will continue to be purposely tipped in favor of the companies. The current culture places work before family, and this causes a huge stress inside the family. But I think that this doesn't allow people the time to really like identify the true problems. So they want the time to be spent more at work and less in your social environment, because you have less opportunity to kind of put the pieces together and try to like unify and come up with a good strategy to balance this work to life idea, which is true. I mean, you need to balance your work and life, your work life and your personal life. But the current culture places work before the family, so it's got to be hard for a Japanese person to go to work every day and pretend that their company is so great to impress their bosses and unify with everybody in this like embraced harmonic feeling and all this called wa here, and that it just meanwhile their true feelings are basically stuck inside themselves and unable to come out in any healthy way. And then at home, from my experience, they're free to just display this like passive aggressive behavior with their spouses and kids, and ultimately this never leaves like an impression of real happiness for the kids to connect with. And it's just blatantly clear to me, and this is dangerous for the up and coming generation. But this behavior increases the depression throughout the family unit, and it discourages conversations about possible ways to eliminate life stresses in healthy manners. The cycle repeats itself from generation to generation, and the youth have no leaders here that are actually speaking the truth to them all the time. And frankly, this is breeding a leaderless future for them. So you learn to be a leader from other leaders. They teach you good, effective ways to communicate your thoughts, and even good leaders can communicate a group of people's thoughts effectively. But if there's nobody there to communicate this to, like a union basically is what I'm talking about. Like you have a union leader, so it's a group of people who get together, and then they have like a spokesman. Like they don't have that here. They don't, because nobody's exchanging information. They're not really. It's like they're so close in proximity, but they're so far away in like their communication. It's just so crazy. But you can see that they're all thinking the same shit. Like it's really difficult for me. Yeah, it's really difficult. But it remains constant that all people have the same needs and the thoughts and the feelings, and the Japanese people have every reason to be angry and pushing for a change. But that will to fight for what is right, it just seems to have died a long time ago. Like, it just doesn't exist. And I have that will to fight for what's right, and it just kind of like just irritates me, because like I want my kids to have that will to fight, and they're not getting it here. They're not, but so I got to give it to them. But I have to get a better understanding of why aren't they getting that will to fight? Like, you have to have that will to fight, because if you don't, everybody's going to take advantage of you, and that's what's happening here. The people here are being taken advantage of because they're really good people. They're just being like, it's almost like slave work. If you got to work overtime and they don't pay you, that's slave work. I don't care what anybody says. If I'm at your company and I'm working, you better be paying me. I get it if I'm like, if I'm a slacker or something, but these people ain't slacking. They're doing their job. The harder they work, the more they get, and it's just really unfair. It's really unfair. I don't know why nobody's talking about it. But all of these like aforementioned things, I think that these all lead to like long-term mental disease, isolation, and ultimately suicide. And the work-life balance is just silent here. And as an American, it's hard for me to just stay silent about it. And unlike Japanese tradition, I actually believe in expressing my thoughts. And unlike some American tradition, I don't really care if I offend anybody. And that's important to know that you got to say what you got to say. And if it offends someone else, that's their problem. I don't want to attack anybody personally, but if I say something that has nothing to do with them personally and they get offended, then that's their fault. It's not my fault. So until the men and women of Japan learn to speak their minds, take a unifiable stand for principle, and shake off cultural lies of conformity, there will be no happiness on this great island. The truth is blatantly obvious. So, you got to wake up from this cultural dream world, like the American dream or the Japanese dream, and you got to start living the human experience. Remember, American dream or Japanese dream, if you're dreaming, you're sleeping. And if you're asleep, you're not in control of your life. And if you're not in control of your life, then who is? That's all I got. Take care.